Welcome to Resiliency Within. I'm your host, Elaine Miller-Karras, and I am so encouraged and inspired to have Clarissa Castillo-Ramsey on my show today. Let me tell you a little bit about her, and then we'll get going with uh, having a dialogue about the amazing work she's been doing for quite a while, and also since the terrible fires that have affected oh my God, it's called the Eaton Fire, and it has affected Altadena in Los Angeles County. But Dr. Clarissa Castillo-Ramsey is an Altadena resident. She has been so since 2002. She's an abstract artist, transformational life coach, and organizational psychologist whose work centers on self-discovery, creativity, and wellness. And through her company, Clarissa Ramsey Studio, Clarissa serves clients in groups, one-on-one, and through her capstone online events, her summits and programs, including Creative Care Summit, Painting Your Path to Self-Expression, and The Art of Becoming, have helped over 4,500 creatives and professionals step into their full potential. Clarissa will share her work as the creative voice and community connections director for Alta Arts Collective, a volunteer-led organization of artists, educators, and community leaders dedicated to providing opportunities for healing, expression, and togetherness in the wake of the Eaton Fire. Alta's mission is to build an inclusive and welcoming artistic community that values camaraderie, collaboration, creativity, and she believes in the power of art to connect people and enrich lives. She's helped led projects such as the Community Canvas Project and Strong Through Arts programs, initiatives that bring artists and communities together to rebuild, reconnect, and imagine new possibilities through the transformative power of creativity. Oh, I could say so much more about her. And I love that we met at the Collaboratory in Altadena, that is a gathering space for community members who are helping not only support people really in their suffering, but also helping support them in their healing. So, Clarissa, welcome. And as we get started today, what's on your mind?
Oh, Elaine, it's so good to be here with you. What is on my mind? A couple of things. One thing is, I'm leaving for Texas at the beginning of December to see my mom and my family. And I'm wondering, am I going to get there with all that's happening, in
With
the
TSA,
airspace?
oh yes.
So that was on my mind. And the other thing that was on my mind is just that I know next week we're doing an event together, healing through the holidays gathering. And I'm so excited about that. So that's what's on my mind too.
Well, and maybe we should say a little bit about that. So one of the things about the collaboratories, there's a wellness group. And in this wellness group, that's where I met Clarissa. I am the executive director emerita of the Trauma Resource Institute, who sponsors the show. But we are, a collective of people that are involved in different kinds of healing to help the community not only stay in the present moment, but to move forward. And so we're having an online gathering that we hope everyone comes to in our community and beyond, to learn about the good works of different members of the collaborative. And so Clarissa will be speaking for the organization that she's involved with. We have four other members of the community that also will be talking about their project. We are actually the National Alliance of the Mentally Ill, NAMI, is part of it. So is some members of the faith community, as well as I'm trying to think of all the people that are going to be there.
Oh, Go Stars.
Yeah, the Ghost Stars. Yeah, thank you. As well as the Trauma Resource Institute. So yeah, I will be there too to represent TRI. So we have really lovely members of the community that will be coming forward. And Carla and Kim, of course, from the faith communities will be there. And I think it's a way that we come together to share with the broader community what we're all doing. What we're doing now is we're looking at the holidays, knowing that when people have lost everything, that the holidays are very difficult. And because we are a national broadcast, always say we're going to be talking about Altadena and what has been done in LA County, but that doesn't mean that people can't reach out to community members in their own community. There are artists everywhere. There are projects that many community centers have. There's projects like NAMI and the Boys Club, Boys and Girls Club, that are all over the country that also may be doing things for your community. And sadly, Clarissa, we've had the floods in North Carolina. We've had
Yes.
hurricanes in Florida. We have people who've lost what we have lost in Los Angeles County. And I guess that our common humanity is, how do we come together as community to be able to help? And what I love about your work is that I've learned as an old trauma therapist that talking has its limitations. But when we bring the arts into the expression of our suffering and our healing, it adds a whole other dimension. So could you say a little bit about your experience with the art
Yes.
and what has led you to this? So over to
Yes.
you.
Thank you, Elaine. Well, I've been a lifelong artist, so I've known for a long time the healing power of art. And I'm excited that in this day and age, the arts is coming more and more and more to the forefront of our lives. I'm not sure if you've read the book Your Brain on Art. It's a wonderful book showing all kinds of research that tell us that even just simply looking at art can help reduce our stress. 45 minutes, I think it's a whole week, 45 minutes in a whole week. If you expose yourself to art, you are healing yourself. And by also practicing art, and you do not need to be an artist, it's truly about the process. And so I've been a lifelong artist, but didn't really incorporate it into my work until more recent years, and even more so since the fires.
Well, I want to just say something about the book. Your Brain and Art is by Susan Magzamin and Ivy Ross, and there's other folks as well that have contributed to that. So just know that you can pick up that book on Amazon. I'm sure in other places where good books are sold. But so it's called Your Brain on Art. I just want to repeat that because I think that as many people, my listeners know that I am very into neuroscience and the neuroscience of how the mind and body are connected. And then just even thinking about what may happen with our brain circuits, Clarissa, as we're looking
Yes.
at art that touches us deeply. So I am so excited about knowing about that book, but I also would like to say something about your book. Can you share with us your book and also maybe some elements of it that people can also learn a little bit about, that I hope they'll be inspired to buy it?
Oh, thanks, Elaine. So I self-published a book called Painting Your Path, and it is all about creating life on your terms. And it was written during a time when I think so many of us, after so many years, ask, okay, is this what my life is all about? Is there something more? Not that there's anything wrong, but I think for so many people, there's a little voice in us that says, "Oh, I'm kind of interested in this, but I'm scared to look into it." And so this book, Painting Your Path, is interviews with inspiring women in midlife and beyond who have said, you know what? I want to pivot and start living for myself. And in that, I came up with a framework because I thought about my own life. And so I'd love to share quickly my framework so that if anyone is listening here who is asking, I feel this inner nudge to explore art or writing or whatever it is.
Clarissa, can I ask you a question about that? Because I think sometimes,
Yes,
I'll say, well, Clarissa, being artistic with drawing has never been quite my strong suit. Now, I do write like for Psychology Today, so I've
yes.
written a couple of books, so I can write, but I would love to explore, my artistic talent with the brush, let's say, or with I'm sure there's so many different mediums, chalk, etc. But can someone like me um, go on that journey to find that kind of expression? Or is it like, oh my gosh, Elaine, you're hopeless. It's never going to happen
Oh
for
my
you?
gosh. So anyone, I believe can paint, can put a mark on paper. So you can just take a piece of paper. I'll give an example.
Okay.
And so here's what I like to do with people is just take out a piece of paper and let's say you have watercolors, for example. You have your cup of water, you have a brush, and you can close your eyes or cast your gaze down and just ask yourself, what color is popping up? And there's no right or wrong. And you just let that color emerge. Let's say it's blue.
How did you know one of my favorite colors is blue, kind of teal?
You know
Thank you.
what? Just intuitive.
You must be
I,
intuitive.
I got an intuitive
Yes,
hit,
there
Elaine.
you go.
And so you just dip your brush. I've got a brush right here. Dip it into some water and you just make a mark on the paper and watch it expand.
And so you just see what happens next.
See what happens next. Take a breath in and out, however's convenient for you. And then you dip your brush in the water, clean it off a little bit, pick up more blue, maybe you pick up green, and you just make marks on the paper. And what I mean by marks is it could be a line, it could be a circle, it could be a square, a dot, it doesn't matter. And then you just fill the page.
And then you have
And
your piece
there
of
you
work.
have it. And then you just tune in to, how does this feel? And again, no right or wrong. You're just noticing what is. And you never know. You might love this piece and keep it for yourself, share it with someone else. You might even sell it. You might even surprise
That would be
yourself,
a surprise to me.
right? You
Anybody
just
would buy
never
what I would
know.
produce. Yes.
Yeah, you just never know.
Well, I think it's so interesting as you're talking about because in the model that I created called the community resiliency model and the trauma resiliency model, I have integrated art in a way that I ask people to draw something that has meaning to them. And people often will say, "Oh, but I was terrible at art. My teacher used to tell me I couldn't draw." And I would say, like you did, it didn't matter. It's that was your teacher's opinion, but you have something inside of you that you could express. And sometimes I've just even seen people write draw stick figures. And when I've asked them about, can you tell me the meaning of it? And they go, oh, well, this is me as a little girl when we used to go to the lake with my mom and dad and my grandpa. And they'll all of a sudden they'll tell a fuller story, but the story came out of the drawing, not that the
Yes.
drawing, the story created the drawing, if you know what I'm saying. It's almost
Yes.
like the ideas of it came from the expression that came through their hands on the paper. And I've always been so awestruck about it because if I ask the next question, because I'm very into the mind-body connection, what are you
Yes.
noticing on the inside? People will say, "Oh, oh, I'm noticing a warmth in my heart. I think that memory and this expression." And then I've gone a step further, and I'm really curious about asking you about this. I said, well, would you like to touch what you've drawn or just look at it? It's your choice. Or what would you like? Most people will choose to touch it, but some will say, oh no, it's so powerful. I can't touch it. But
Yes.
if they do, the intensity of the experience of what that drawing means to them, it expands in their body where you almost can see the lightness come in. And then I ask them, well, what are you thinking now? And they will give me some beautiful sacred meaning about the value, let's say in this particular example of, I really never realized how important my grandpa was to who I became as a person until I made this drawing. And I said, well, when you remember that now, what happens on the inside? And it's like they're glowing. and feel light. It's like
Yes,
amazing what happens. So I'm just wondering, with that, description as someone who's not, involved as an art therapist, let's say, have you seen something like that? I mean, this experience that I'm sharing with you.
absolutely, absolutely. And yesterday, so I also lead a group coaching cohort called The Art of Becoming. And yesterday we painted together. And I asked all the ladies in the group, all right, like, let's talk about this. What did you feel? What did you notice? And very similar, each one of them had a story about, wow, I'm really powerful. I I wasn't expecting that coming out of this piece. Or another one was just talking about her neighborhood, and she's in Scotland actually, and just talking about how, just the changing of the seasons showed up in her painting, and it's getting cold. So it's fascinating how powerful that connection is.
Well, and so when we kind of led this into this this tributary as you were talking about your book, and you interviewed all these different women, and when you take people on a journey, you wanted to say a little bit about the framework, and you did give this wonderful example of how I might be able to start doing this. Maybe we'll have to do it together, Clarissa. Now that I
Would
know,
love that.
yes, I would love to do that. But so, do you want to share more about the framework?
Sure, I'd be happy to. And there's 5 pillars in this framework. And the first one is to dream. Because I think and I primarily work with women in midlife and beyond. Um, you know, we live, so many of us live for other people. We're raising families and all kinds of wonderful things, great careers, but sometimes we leave ourselves behind. And so that first step is to dream. What is it that's speaking to my heart right now that I can think of into existence over time? It doesn't need to be tomorrow. Step two is to decide that this vision, this nudge is worth pursuing, and that you are the one worthy of pursuing it.
So do you
That's
think, can
step
I ask you a
two.
question about the dream?
Yes,
Because I mean, the
yes.
dream, it almost seems like you're saying it, that many of us dream, and maybe we see some of our dreams in our life come to fruition and become a reality. And then other times we have dreams that don't. Do you think that when you ask that person to dream, I mean, it's almost like, it sounds to me like you're dipping into a very an intuitive well that lives inside of us, that sometimes we push away or don't actually embrace, in
Yes.
the way that if we did a little bit of that dreaming, like, let's say, honestly, I have dreamed about drawing and doing art. And I have many friends that are artists. And I said, oh, I could never do what they do. But then even that thought limits me, right, in doing that. So I don't know if it's okay to use me for an example, but
Oh, yes.
if I was to dream, so you'd encourage me to dream and touch into that intuitive well
Yes.
that's inside of me. Am I saying that correctly?
That is correct.
Okay.
And, you bring up a great point. It's something to be curious about, you know? And as you're thinking about yourself as a creative, as an artist, and I will just say this about being creative, being an artist, I truly believe we are all creative in our unique way. I love how you have dressed today and every day. You always, are looking sharp. And to me, that is creativity. That is artistry. Chefs, people, who make these wonderful meals, or moms who are like putting things together with whatever is in the pantry, that is artistry to me. So
Yeah.
we all have that innate power. And yes, I would encourage you to dream. Like, what would it feel like? What could I do to explore this path?
Yeah. Well, and when you say that, what would you do to explore this path? And I'm thinking about our listeners. It just seems this would be so also connected in this show, we talk about how we cultivate well-being. That's
Yes.
my definition of really resiliency is embodied well-being. But it seems to me that when we dream that dream and we say, what would that look like? It's another way of cultivating well-being. Would you say that would be true?
Yes. I 100% agree. And also, like, you don't have to tell anybody else, like, what you're thinking about, because I do believe sometimes our dreams can get squashed when we invite too many outside sources to weigh in, especially at the beginning.
Well, and I think that especially when you talk about, you've worked primarily with women, and I love the way you say that mid years and beyond, because I think I'm in beyond. I'm in beyond. But I think that we do so much for others that
Yes.
it seems to me too that art is very personal. And it's such an important thing to cultivate our own well-being. And I'm thinking also, I kind of want to interweave also the fact that we see so much suffering in our
Yeah.
community right now. And, so many, the women and the men, I mean, all folks, and however a person may identify, is that people have lost so much. And with that loss can also be that loss of identity. And also
Yes.
can, for some, it could be the loss of dreaming. And I think
Right.
especially for those of us that are beyond, and I heard someone share this yesterday. They said, well, my parents are in their 80s. They lost their home, and I don't know if they'll live to see the rebuilding of their home. So the dream of what their life was is not the life that they're living right now in a rented home with their beloved belongings and everything being gone. But I guess the question to you about this, knowing that you've been working in the community, is it possible to still dream? Could that 80 year
Yes.
old, would be there something that you would say to that 80-year-old that has lost everything in terms of dreaming of art being a medium that could be healing for them?
Yes, I would say, that is true. And I'm going to use your question. What else is true?
Yes.
What else is true right now? And what could feel fun right now and expressive?
Yeah.
And if art is something you want to explore, um, you know, I know there's many places where that can become a reality.
Yeah. And so if we're looking at, here we've been talking about the first pillar. So can we move into the second pillar?
Yes,
Oh, go ahead.
decide.
So
It's decide.
decide.
Simple. Yeah.
So decide to take that dream and make it
And
a
take
reality
action
and
and
take
take
action or
action
not.
on it. Yes, like, okay, I have this nudge. I'm deciding, yes, I'm going to explore this. Yes, I can do it. I'm worthy of doing it. And it's deciding that you're going to move forward.
Yeah. Well, and it also seems as you say that decision, and maybe I'm again thinking of myself, I'm very good at helping the world, literally at times.
Yes.
Not so good at helping myself, right? That I can say, well, I'm kind of last on the totem pole. That I felt that when you were saying decide, I was taking it very personally. And when again, you work so much with women, and is that deciding to do something for yourself. And it
Yes.
doesn't mean you still don't do all these things for others, but especially at a time like again using the fires as an example, that if you have lost everything, it may be something that even with filling out the paperwork for insurance and FEMA, and is the soil going to be safe enough to even rebuild right now? All those questions that you and I hear practically on a daily basis, right? Is the decision to take a few moments, well, I don't know, call them nourishing moments for yourself.
Yes.
Are you worth it right now to do that? Because I am seeing, right? We're like almost 11 months in, and people are hearing, I'm hearing the word burning out.
Yes.
And the helpers who have been on the ground since day one have been doing this for a long time. And I think that with recovering from something as devastating as what's happened to our communities and other communities around the world, is that we as human beings, we sometimes think it's going to be over quick,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Nope.
Not. I
I'm
mean,
learning.
not.
No.
We're learning that it's not. And so that decision, whatever you decide, I think it's sometimes a brave decision, a courageous
Yes.
decision to say, oh, maybe I'm worth it right now to do.
Yes.
So,
you hit the nail on the head, Elaine. It
um,
is. It's a decision for yourself. I'm gonna nourish myself. Yes.
yeah. So, okay, that's number two. We've got five.
Okay.
So what's number
Yes, number
three?
three is to plan. And you don't need a business plan. You don't need steps A to Z. It's just a next, what can I do to nourish this dream that I have? What's one thing I can do? And let's say, Elaine, using you as the example of
Okay.
connecting to creativity,
Yeah.
it could be as simple as I'm going to go to the museum, or I'm going to take myself to the art store. And you don't even have to buy anything. It's just making that next step plan.
So like the plan of like, okay, if you do want to draw, why don't you get some paper and some drawing materials? And I can go to Michael's, one of my favorite stores to go to
Yes,
anyway.
I love that place too.
Like too, yes, I go to Michael's.
Yes,
We have that here in California. I don't know if it's all over the country. And so go buy art supplies wherever you may buy art supplies. And I could, that's the planning because I haven't
yes,
started yet, but I'm going, okay, I have my dream. I'm deciding, and now I'm going to plan to take action. Okay, I love that.
yes,
All right.
yes. And then step four is to be brave. So you've bought the art supplies, and then the next step is to be take that courageous step, and maybe you sit down and you find on YouTube. There's no shortage of videos to show you, huh? If you put in first time drawing, see what pops up, and you take that step. It's just, there's no one there, it's just you, and you just start to draw.
So taking action. Well, I love that because I know that so many of us, if I'm trying to do something, I will go on Google and say, how do I do such and such? So we can do that with art. We can say, so
Yes.
first step of I'm starting to draw. Can I watch a YouTube video? Oh, that's step four. Okay, I want to hold off on step five because we're
Okay.
going to take a short break from our sponsor, the Trauma Resource Institute, which is a nonprofit that I co-founded in, I can't believe it, almost 20 years ago. And they sponsor the show. And we're going to hear from them on the break. And I'm just going to say, www.traumaresourceinstitute.com is the website. You can learn more about that, but you'll hear more in just a few moments. So we'll take a short break and I'll be back in just a few minutes with Dr. Clarissa Castillo-Ramsey, and we're going to get to step five, which I think is a very important step coming up after the break. Welcome back. This is Elaine Miller-Karish, your host of Resiliency Within. I have the joy of to be with Dr. Clarissa Castillo-Ramsey, and we are talking about artistic expression. We're talking about her book. We're just talking about how she has been working with the survivors of the Eaton Fire in bringing her artistic talents and really your ability to inspire people, Clarissa. That's what I'm really hearing from you. And as we've gone through the four pillars of your book, but we're going to go through the last one, which is the fifth pillar. So can we continue with that?
Sure, would love to. The fifth pillar is to reflect. And I feel like this is a piece that can often get missed because we're so excited about what we're doing, or we just want to keep going, 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 going. And it's important to take a pause and check in, especially after we're trying something new. So, going back to our example of drawing for the first time. So you watched your YouTube video, you have your drawing in front of you, and I love to encourage people to just, okay, see, how was that? Ask yourself, how was that experience? What did you notice? What was easy? What was maybe a little challenging?
Yeah. Reflection, I think, is so important because then it also helps us. Because when you're talking, one of the things that's kind of I'm getting is that this experience of your five pillars and taking us through the journey is, yes, the artistic expression, but it also is so connected cognitively to how we view ourselves as a human on the planet and what
Yes.
we also feel that we're deserving of, and also even deserving of being, I often say I'm perfectly imperfect. Right? But it's like being okay with being perfectly imperfect. I think we live in a society
Yes.
that's so fast moving, and we have expectations of ourselves, and this is what we're going to do, and this is our 5-year plan. And if anything, no matter what your 5-year plan was in parts of our county, just January 7th and 8th changed everything. And,
Yes.
you know, talking to someone recently who never thought they were going to take a whole, month or more off and walk the Camino in Spain, for
Wow.
example. And so, of course, you can imagine the experiences I'm sure that that person had. But to me, this is part of the creative expression. Those 5 pillars could be, um, we're using me as the art project, right? But it also could be, I've always wanted to walk the Camino. And how do I make that happen? Because all those steps could be implemented. You could have a dream, you could decide, you can plan, you can, you know, start to take action. And then when we do that with anything in our life, then we can reflect upon, okay, what is the meaning for us? And I guess I want to ask you a question, directly related to the fires, is this reflective moment and the meaning that we're hearing throughout our community. Would you like to say a little bit about your experience of that with people that you've been helping through this process during this time in our community?
Yes, it has been so eye-opening to be in the community with other fire survivors. And I'll just quickly share a story. I recently, last week, got to lead an art session at a community dinner for the Epicenter Church. And, I was a little nervous, like, okay, I know the healing power of art, but are people going to be interested in this? And of course, we always have a choice. You don't have to participate. And for those who did, I went around the tables and just asked them about their pieces. And it just felt so good to hear the reflection back. Oh, this was my house. This was my neighborhood. This was my pet. And it was just wonderful to see the creativity and people processing what's happening in a different form.
Well, and when you say that, and I often say, like, what else is true, is there's
Yes.
been such tremendous loss. And the things that were nourishing for us during our lives, when we had these things that we could live in or hug or see, it doesn't change the fact that there's still resources for us, even if they're no longer in existence. And that to me is when you said that in terms of that expression, they could draw their home and say, oh, here it was. And even if they started saying, oh, I remember the first Christmas there, or the first holiday, or when my son was born, or all the different things, that's the legacy of someone's life, that they haven't lost the memories of it, even though the physicality of that house no longer exists. And I guess that's what I've seen is really possible in the suffering, is the remembering can be, yes, you can lean into the suffering, but you can also lean it the other way and say, oh, yeah, but there's so much that's happened from that. And sure, there can be tears and sadness, but I think that if there can be the remembrance of what else is true, that I think it can help people maneuver through the journey. I love your, using journey as our metaphor of what is ahead, because I think what we're seeing is, you can say, oh, well, my goal is to rebuild my house. But getting to rebuilding the house, which could be the dream, Oh my goodness. You could take your five pillars to that. I mean, and just knowing that,
Right.
all the different things that people have to do. And you know that so well.
Yes. Yeah, I think that that framework can be used anywhere in life.
So I'm wondering, with what you've been doing, and I mean, I love that you brought up the project you did with the church community. If there's other, using your fifth pillar, is if there's other reflections that have come to you in the work that you have been doing in the community that you think are important to share in your own journey in being a helper.
Yes. Um, as I reflect over this time, you know, when I think of resiliency, I think of the individual. That's my first thought. And living in Altadena, being part of the Eaton Fire Collaboratory, connecting with your beautiful organization, what is true, also true for me, is the power of community resiliency and seeing that come to life through various events and programs. That's also really deeply touching to me. And as a helper in the community, having resources such as your model have been life saving for us, for me.
Yeah, and I can see that that's been so amazing to me is seeing how the community has come together. I mean, and there's more than one collaborative, by the way. I think there's three or more that different groups have come together, different different faith communities are doing things within their own faith community, and then they're connecting to the outer community. And I've heard more than one person say, I didn't even know this existed in my community, right?
Right.
Or one lovely, we're doing a workshop at the collaboratory right now, and one of our helpers is from South Central Los Angeles, and she's African American, and she said, oh, and as she was leaving yesterday, she goes, Elaine, I feel so humbled. I'm part of the African American, the Black community of Los Angeles, and I didn't know about the redlining in Altadena until the fires. And this is part of my history of being a Black person in LA. And I just am so grateful to meet all these individuals who were, who their families were pioneers in coming and saying, okay, so you won't let us live anyplace else, but we can live in Altadena, and which is,
Yes.
the vibrant community that was and still is, even though so many people have lost their homes. That I see, then there's something called green lighting, right? Where there's a nonprofit that's been starting to try to raise money. So the folks who didn't have enough insurance can tap into this resourcing. It's started by a Black woman who doesn't want to lose that legacy in Altadena for it to completely change because the fires have changed. So I was just thinking about kind of the reflection of here this young woman who she's I think she's probably in her late 20s who works with us, and just finding a new meaning for her in the community and a new respect from something she didn't even know existed in Los Angeles, right? I mean, I think, have you heard stories like that about other aspects? Just curious about people you've.
Yes. Yes. I think, we get to meet so many different folks. And like for me, as an artist, getting connected with so many different people from outside and um, just what can we do as a collective, musicians, artists, drummers, to bring back the artistic vibrancy that's kind of, been taken over by what's currently happening. So, yeah, it just truly has been, I would have never imagined like how powerful this whole group and community
Community.
are.
Well,
Yes.
and I have to say, I guess a self-reflection for me. So I live on the foothills of LA County. And so Altadena is about 20 minutes from my house on a easy drive, 40 minutes if it's traffic, sometimes an hour. Like the traffic in LA is awful. But the first thing that came to me and many of the people that I know in my city, that's a few cities down, as an Angelino, as a person who lives in LA County, is how can we help? So what I've seen too is the community of Altadena is so strong in and of itself. And yet there's also people outside the community that have come in that are from different cities in Los Angeles say, how can we help you? You're not alone. We know you've just, what do you need? And I've heard that happen with so many folks that didn't know much, let's say like the young woman from South Central, didn't know much about Altadena and now knows about Altadena. And so the greater LA community has also come together, which I don't know. I've been very touched by that as well. I don't know if you have any
Yes.
reflections on that.
Oh, absolutely. And also people from, way outside LA County have come in to support. How can I help? We had someone, his name is escaping me, but he went through the campfire fires up north, came down to, so he said, okay, like, what can we do? How can I help you? And we had such a nice session with him in the wellness room. And he gave us wonderful thoughts and ideas of what we can do as wellness practitioners to keep the community going without burning out ourselves,
Yes,
because
well,
that's important
yeah,
too.
and I think, well, it's so interesting that you mentioned that because we're doing a training right now in the collaboratory, and one of the people that I invited to come down is from Mendocino County, and Mendocino County in California they've had so many wildfires. In fact, one of her sons' very close friends died in the camp in one of the fires a few years ago, and he was a high school student. He just couldn't get out of the house. And she said, oh, I would love to come down, Elaine. And she's one of our senior faculty of our organization. And so she's doing the training. And so one of the things that she did for all of us that were about to do the training here, she goes, I've just learned some things I really want to share with all of you that's really important. We have so many colloquialisms in our language that have to do with fire. So if we're excited about something, we'll say, oh, I'm on fire about this. Or if it said, oh, this idea was sparked by this. So she said, I've learned from my community that the fire and sparks, if we can try to remove those as much as possible, because those words can be cues, they can be triggers of all of a sudden having a response of what happened to the community. Now, how do we know that, right? If you hadn't lived through fires, and she also,
Yes,
I did a project with her in Paradise after their fires up there, the campfire up there, and it's the same thing. I think that we have learned from other people who've gone through this experience of what can we learn from them so we don't have to have the same stumbling points that are invariably going to happen. But that's been really also touching as an Angelino that folks have come down and want to come down. They're leaving their homes and saying, I'm coming down. Yeah, I can do that. And I want to be there because I want to share what I've learned.
yes,
And so when we see that, I often think about our common humanity, Clarissa, because I think we've seen sadly in Los Angeles with the ICE raids, for example,
yes,
that we can't really talk too much about, also talking about the fire recovery and not talking about ICE, because have you seen so much fear in our community it's palpable.
yes, it is. It is. Yeah, so many people I know are keeping their doors closed. They're not coming out. They're very nervous. So, yeah, it is, to your point, it is very palpable here.
Yeah, and so I think that's why as many different modalities of healing we have to come together to think about. And in terms of even we can do things online. Can you do your projects online, Clarissa? Is it possible to do
Yes,
it like that? So that
yes,
means that you can lead an art exercise with people sitting in their homes, because there are people that don't feel like they can leave their space because of ice. But also, I think when we talk about the and beyond years, Sometimes
Uh,
people can't leave because they're not as mobile as they used to be. So I think that they're, as much as we sometimes get tired of Zoom, it also has been a wonderful way to make certain healing modalities more accessible. So could you say maybe something about using like these digital platforms for what you do?
yes, so I actually do free painting sessions, paint with me on Zoom. I'm not necessarily teaching, but it's a way to make time for creativity. And it's just a simple welcome. I'll have another camera showing my desk, like my creative space, and people can follow along with me or do something else creatively, do their own thing. And it's just time to tap into that part of our brain together.
So you actually do this and you offer this free to people to do to paint? Oh my,
Yes, I call it Artful RX. It's
artful.
an art
I love
prescription.
that. So, okay, Artful RX. I want everybody to hear about. So, this is an important question because I also want people to know how, if they want to get in touch with you about the work that you do, how would people find out about your organization? Do you have a website, for example, that people can go to? So,
Yes,
tell us about what that would be like.
sure. I have a website. It's called ClarissaStudio.com. All one
Clarissa's,
word.
Is it ClarissaStudio.com or ClarissaStudio.com? Is it with another S?
One S,
One S.
Clarissa Studio
.com.
together
Well,
dot
that's easy to
com.
remember. So
Yes.
ClarissaStudio.com. And if they go there, they can find out about your book.
So they can contact me there. My book is on Amazon. So if you just put Painting Your Path on Amazon, it'll pop up. And if people want to tune into the podcast, Painting Your Path, that's another great way to connect.
So there's different things that they can do right today is going into your website and find out the different offerings that you have. And even if they're not ready to make personal contact with you, they can get your book on Amazon and start reading about the pillars. And in the book, I know you interview different women. And does it also give you the structure on how to start your journey in your book
Yes, at the very end.
at the very end?
Yes,
So I'm meaning to ask you this, and we have about 10 minutes left, but I know that you interviewed a number of women, and I'm wondering if there's like one or two of their stories, their journeys that you might think is particularly powerful for people to hear from you today. We're talking about
sure,
recovering from hardship and from the fires, but I think that the broader lens of what you do is so connected to not only what's happening in Altadena and the Palisades and Asheville, North Carolina, and Florida, and all the different places that have hurricanes and floods, et cetera. So can you maybe highlight one or two?
sure. So um, I think about Denise, and she's someone that I know. She's very crafty, and she always had this vision to bring other artists together, to just learn from each other. And she said, one day, Clarissa, one day I'm going to have my own space in my community where this is going to happen. So I interviewed her in 2018, 2019. Fast forward 4 years. So things take time sometimes. But now she has a thriving space in Los Angeles. And what she's doing for the community, given all of that's happening, is offering, hey, let's just come together and craft
Mm,
for a very nominal fee just to help cover her
supply
time,
and things.
supplies, really.
Mm.
But it's wonderful just seeing all of the people come together. But it just started with that inner nudge. I want to build community for creativity, not even artists, for just for the people to express in a different way.
So, I mean, when you talked about her, I can see those five pillars in action, right? So she dreamed, she had the nudge, and she did the rest of the steps. And here she is doing this right now and using it for healing in probably ways that she didn't even realize she would be doing this for the healing of her own community with the fire that she
Right.
experienced. And I think that's the other part about journeys is that maybe I'm going to ask you a personal question if that's okay, is that for
Absolutely.
your
Yeah.
own personal journey, that here, part of this community and your reflection yourself, what have been, your learnings for your own journey through the last few months of our lives here in LA County and in the work that you've been doing?
What has come to the surface is a calling to share my gifts. And even though I've been a lifelong artist, sharing what I'm doing has been very private for me. Connecting with people and just having the courage to say, "Hey, I do this too. Maybe it'll help." And just leaning into putting the ego out of the way. What are they gonna think? Is this gonna be good or not good? And just showing up as a human being and saying, "How can I help?" I would have never imagined doing like being part of these events that I've been part of. So I think we all have that something we can share to help another person.
Oh, well, I love that, is that, it's like you now feel it's a calling. And I guess when we talked about that second step, the courage and the bravery to step into what's possible, that you actually have something to offer people. And I can say that I think absolutely that you do. But I think for many people that are creative that I've met, that sometimes they have to take that step, I guess that nudge that you talk about to say, okay, I can do this. And sometimes it takes something bigger than ourselves, like a massive disaster in our community, to say,
Right.
what in the heck am I waiting for? I better just
Right.
start doing it because, so what if someone is an artist and says, well, I don't know if that's really that artistic, Clarissa or
Right.
Elaine or anybody, but right now, the need is great. And we know that there are not, here we're both, you're a psychologist, I'm a licensed clinical social worker. There's not enough psychologists and licensed clinical social workers to deal with the immensity of the trauma that's been experienced in our communities in Los Angeles. But we can create art projects. We can create
That's
people coming
right.
together in a large way. We can create workshops. We could do, oh, I can see we're going to do a collaborative workshop in the future. Clarissa, I see that's in
Yes.
the future, right?
I see it too, Elaine.
I see it. We're going to do it. But I think
Yes.
that those, the creative juices can start coming forth, really a spring for other things that we can do. And I think that's what I've seen in Altadena and the Palisades both, is I've met the most amazing people that are saying, oh, we can do this and maybe we can do that. And then sometimes there is that overwhelming sense of grief and sadness. And I just want to say, because we are just a couple weeks away from Thanksgiving, that I think that when we have holidays that have meaning to us, and Thanksgiving is, I think, has meaning for many people, that there can be grief associated with it as well. And not to say that we're not looking at that, but I think that art can be a way of expressing our grief too, in a way
Yes.
that comes out of us and doesn't have to stay within us. I've certainly seen that. Do you want to say anything about that kind of expression
Yes.
that can come through?
Yeah. It's, I think it's a very gentle way to express yourself. And for me, I lost my voice in 2023. Still working to get it back. I believe it'll come back, and art
I
has
believe your
been,
voice is going to come back too.
yes, and art has been the saving grace. So again, it's not about creating a masterpiece per se. It's about the process and just noticing how it feels.
It's about the process and noticing. And thank you so much for sharing your own perfect, personal journey with your voice as well. Because see that you can have something unexpected happen to you, and yet you can also, again, what else is true? And here you are having, I'm going to say this, a big voice in our community in bringing your art forward. So I thank you for that. And oh, Clarissa, I can't believe the time has escaped us so quickly. I didn't realize we only had about a minute left. So I just want to thank you so much for coming forward and bringing your voice to us and your amazing artistic journey and how you're bringing it to so many in our community. And I can see that you're going to continue to do that. I'm so glad you had that nudge, that you nudged yourself, and now you're going to nudge me to be more artistic. So I'm going to be talking to you about that the next time I see you. But
Love it.
yes, so we have about a minute left. You know, your final word, any final word you'd like to say?
I would like to say if you've had that creative nudge, explore it, break out any art crafts you have, even if it's your kids, and just play. We
Yeah.
didn't get into that too much, but play.
Play.
Yes.
Yeah, so as I often end the show with, inviting my listeners to think about what else is true in their life. And maybe that's something, no matter what's happening to you right now in your life, maybe play a little bit. Do something that might make you smile or laugh. Watch a funny movie. If you have kids, take them someplace. Grandkids, take them someplace. Go to a yard and a play yard and just see the kids laughing and running. Sometimes we just need to remember what else is true if we're stuck in the kind of the mire of grief and sadness, which is part of life. But I think what I've learned too, if we get stuck there, it can make our life smaller and make it hard for us to have happiness and to share all the wisdom that we have as human beings with others. So remember to play. Remember what else is true. So this is Elaine Miller-Karras signing off for Resiliency Within, and a deep bow to Clarissa Castillo-Ramsey for coming and being with me today. And remember her website, clarissastudio.com, and you can learn more about her. Thank you.